found this piece on Marketplace and fell in love with it right away. The details in the front were so beautiful, but the top had a small crack in the lid, and I'll show you how I fixed that and a little piece of molding that was missing in the upcoming video. I hope you enjoy. Hello there. Look at this piece. Isn't it cool? I think it was, the guy told me it might have been like something to hold wood. I don't know, but I don't think I'd be putting wood in something this beautiful. It might be a blanket chest. But anyway, I'm really excited about doing a little makeover with this. So I just am starting to clean it. Look at that. It's very dirty. And a lot of times when you see a piece like this, you might not think, oh, there's not much stuff gonna come off of it, but there always is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm using Pure Power. I'm going to clean it, and then I also, if you notice, and maybe you can't see here, but right here, there's a little piece of molding that is missing, the wood. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create it using, this has a little bit of a floral pattern in it, but what I'm gonna do is create it with one of these molds and then smooth it out so that it doesn't have the design in it. And I think this is gonna be the perfect little twist. So we're gonna try it and create it. So first of all, I'm gonna clean it though, and then we're gonna create that. And then we will paint it, and I think I'm gonna do some glazing and some cool things to pull out all of this design here because it's really cool. And there's actually one on each side. So I'm gonna be using French blue. I think I'm gonna be using a little bit of a metallic over top of this, and then a tea stained glaze to give it that antique look. So stay tuned. Before painting, I had to clean this piece really well, especially because the age of this piece and also because of all the tiny little details in the molding and carved areas. So I used an old toothbrush and Pure Power by Farmhouse Paint. It's a great prep for getting ready to paint a piece. So did that first, then sprayed it with water and a clean cloth, and obviously wiping it back, you can see how much grime was on that. Now using a microfiber cloth, using clean water again, just getting in all the little nooks and crannies and all the details, wiping it clean, then letting it dry before moving on to the next step, which is painting. I thought about taking that little keyhole out, but it was on there pretty secure, so I just cleaned it really well. Both of the sides have this beautiful detail as well, little carved areas where I sprayed the Pure Power, scrubbed it really well, then with clean water and a clean cloth, wiped that back and prepped it for getting ready to paint. Now using an IOD mold, I decided to create my own molding with the air dry clay to replace the little space that was missing on the front carving. This mold had a little swirl that worked perfectly, so I used some cornstarch, put that in the mold first, and I just added clay into one small area of the mold. I didn't need the entire piece. And using the air dry clay, pressing that into the mold, then using my thumb to spread the clay into the mold, and using the micro rim edge makes it perfect for getting a nice clean casting of this piece, and then it comes out very easily due to the cornstarch. Once I removed it from the IOD mold, I pressed it and smoothed it out a little bit to match the other side of this blanket chest where the molding was, and it was more simple in details, so I smoothed it out a little bit more and took out some of the details from the original mold. Then I was holding it up to make sure that the sizing was right and just trying to make it match, although it didn't have to be perfect because I knew once I painted over it, it would all come together nicely. But just trying to figure out where to place it, and then once I was ready to place it, I decided to get my Titebond glue, spread it on the back, and place this onto the area where it would match. Now, trying to fit your hand in this, and I got the glue on my hands and everything, what I find is this little tool, which is called an uh-oh tool, is perfect for getting in some of these little nooks and areas where you might not be able to reach with your hands. And it's got like a little squeegee on the one side, and it's perfect for removing some excess glue or excess clay, almost like you're carving your piece to make it exactly what you want it to be. So these little tools are great, and they're put out by Farmhouse Paint products. I carry them in my store, but also online. You can check it out on my website. But as you can see, it was a perfect little tool to get into the little areas that was difficult to reach. Once I was finished with that, I moved to the other side of the piece where one of the moldings was slightly loose, and so I took a little bit of Titebond glue, I put it on the edge of a paintbrush, a small paintbrush, and just tried to squeeze it in there. I didn't want to pull the piece totally off, but there was a little gap, so I was able to get that paintbrush in between there and add a little glue into there and press it, and it held perfectly. Sometimes you just need a little bit of glue to adhere a piece that might be a little bit loose. Now to add some color. So I'm using French blue here. I like to use the grip brush by Farmhouse Paint, adding the paint on in small areas, almost like hash marks going down, and then spreading it the other direction seems to help get really good coverage. And this color was one of the colors that I had originally fell in love with Farmhouse Paint, and when I saw this piece, it reminded me of something that I had seen done with a gold metallic foil and French blue, and so that's what inspired me for this piece. So going over this entire piece, this is just the first coat. I will go through each little nook and cranny. The angle on this brush is perfect for getting in some of these areas where the raised panel or the recessed panel is actually straight edges and corners and things like that, but it also is good for even getting in the detail of the carved piece where I can kind of stipple and work the paint into those areas. But again, this is just the first coat, and once that dries, I can move on to the second coat. Now where this little keyhole was that I decided not to remove, the grip brush has a very fine edge to it, and so what I'm doing here is just pressing the bristles into the edge of this little keyhole. It was a little brass piece, and so it was perfect because it didn't add paint to the brass, but it just nestled up right up against the trim on that. So it was perfect to make sure that I didn't paint the piece, but also get in very close to the edge on that. Again, adding the first coat of paint to this entire piece, you can see where that little piece of molding has dried that we used with the air dry clay. And once I paint over it, you barely can tell that it was added. It's a great little trick to do when you need to add something to match. You can actually create your own molding just by molding the air dry clay into what you need. Now I forgot to take a video of the first part of this, but this is called Pate, Wood Pate by Farmhouse Paint. It comes in two colors. This is the lighter color, but I have a tiny little spatula here that I originally did the first coat, same way I'm doing this right now, but basically spreading this wood pate over that big crack that was at the top of this. And this is the second coat where I'm filling in to just make it a little bit more even. And again, once this is done, you'll see the next step where we sand and make it smoother. But this is a perfect product to fill in little, there's also a deep scratch that was on the top of this. So I filled in the scratch and the crack, and it will make it so that it is more sturdy, but also prettier, and you won't see the big crack. I also like to take a little bit of water with this fine mist spray bottle and just wipe it back to smooth out the area. It kind of leaves it a little bit more smooth and just gets the edges clean so that when it's time to paint, it's going to be a smoother finish. Now I'm adding the second coat here all over the entire piece. This is again using the grip brush and French blue. So here I'm just sanding out the wood pate a little bit and making it a nice smooth finish for getting ready for the finishing coat of paint. Probably another 2 coats will just cover this up, but it makes it nice and smooth using a fine grit sandpaper. The wood pate is stainable and sandable. Then using the French blue, I just painted right over that wood pate as it was after it was fully dried, and it went on really smoothly. So the next product is called Metallized by Farmhouse Paint. It comes in 8 ounces or a quart. And here I take a small paintbrush and just add it to the areas where I want to highlight with a metallic foil. The substance is like a milky, watery substance. It goes on white but dries clear and will be tacky in about 15 minutes. So you're going to want to let it dry, and you can let it dry longer than 15 minutes, but you just want it to be dry before you move on to adding your metallic foil. So I went over all of the areas where I wanted to add the accents of gold, and even in the little nooks and crannies of this design, going over that. And I did it along the sides of this piece as well, and then even adding into the raised panel area just to give it a little bit more of a accent when this is all finished. So continuing to just add it where you want, and you can always go back and add more or layers. You can actually add multiple layers of different color foils as well. Originally, I was trying to figure out, did I want to use gold or copper? I looked at them both with the French blue and decided on the gold. It's something that I've used before and it always turns out beautiful. So what I do now is I cut sections of this foil and use it in sections. It's easier to work with that way. And you lay it over top of your area that your Metalize has dried. So this has been, I've waited probably about 30 minutes, although you usually can do it in about 15. I take a shimmer brush that is a stiff brush, and as I lay the foil over top of where the Metalize has dried, I rub with the shimmer brush and it will release the foil onto the metallized area. So I just continue going around this whole piece, and you can see where it starts to remove off of the back of the foil, and then you can continue just using the areas that still have the shimmer area still present. Keep using all of it, and then you don't waste any of it. Once you use up that piece, you cut more and just continue going over the entire area and releasing the foil onto this piece. Here's a little close-up of the design with the metallic foil on it. And as you can see, it doesn't cover it completely, although I could go back and put more Metalize on if I wanted to. Now I'm going to be using glazing gel over the entire piece. This is a color called Tea Stain, and I like to use a chip brush with this, and this is where it looks really messy. But you just add your glaze over the entire piece, over the metallic foil and everything, and I like to work in sections. So once I add this on, I will get the area that I want covered, and then I like to use these shop towels, or sometimes I use cheesecloth, and wipe back the area, but the glaze will sit into all of those nooks and details, and even highlight the areas of the paint so that it just makes it look more aged. Once I've finished with that section, I take a smaller chip brush that is dry and just wisp around the areas, because sometimes the glaze can pool up in some of those little nooks and I don't want it to be too thick in there. So I just lightly brush it out and spread it, and it just makes it a little bit more smoother. Now here I am again adding more of the glaze with the larger chip brush and then wiping it back. I like to go with the grain of the wood, so on the two side pieces I'm going to go up and down, where that top and bottom piece I'm going to go across, and it'll just kind of go with the grain in the wood. After I finished with the top, I moved to the sides and did the same thing there. Just giving the whole piece the glazed look makes it look antique and a little bit more aged. It also is going to pick up the cracks and crevices and some of the areas that might have looked like it was broken or wood that was missing, but when you add this glaze in there, it just really gives it an aged look, and it just works perfectly with this piece. So again, this was French blue, gold metallic foil, and then a tea stain glaze over it. I love the combination of these three together. Well, this is it. It's finished. I love doing this piece. It turned out really great, and you will see it at my shop. And stay tuned for future projects with me, Kim Rowe, and For the Nest. And if you enjoyed this, I would love it if you like and subscribe to my YouTube. Have a great day.